Hi, my name is Dan. Today, I'm going to tell you the storyline of a movie titled Jurassic World Rebirth, which was released in 2025. This movie tells the story of Earth after the dinosaurs escaped from their enclosures and began roaming freely in the wild. The film stars Jonathan Bailey, Mahershala Ali, and Scarlett Johansson. Let's jump right into the storyline of Jurassic World Reboot. In 2008, on Ile St. Hubert Island, located in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, a secret laboratory owned by the company InGen was carrying out illegal genetic experiments on dinosaurs. In this facility, they created several new species of dinosaurs. One day, a hungry employee carelessly threw away a food wrapper while working. He didn't realize that the plastic waste was blown away by the wind and ended up damaging the security gate system. Suddenly, the alarm went off because one of the gates malfunctioned. Everyone panicked and started running around. The employee who had carelessly thrown away the trash was trapped inside the room. He was immediately devoured by a mutant dinosaur called Distortus Rex or D-Rex. Long story short, 25 years later, dinosaurs are now freely roaming the Earth. This happened because in the previous film, some people released them from Jurassic World Park. Scientists discovered that dinosaurs prefer living in tropical climates. In New York, a high-ranking executive of a pharmaceutical company named Martin recruited a secret military agent named Zora to collect samples in order to develop a heart disease cure that could save humanity. After Martin explained that the samples they needed had to come from living dinosaurs of the largest size, Zora immediately refused, saying the mission was far too dangerous.
No, thanks.
Martin kept pursuing Zora. He explained that if they succeeded in completing this mission, he could develop a heart disease cure that might save 20% of the world's population suffering from heart conditions. On top of that, Martin offered Zora an enormous payout, enough for her to retire once the mission was over. Zora then asked, "So how much exactly will I be paid?" Martin told her he would give her $10 million if she accepted the job. Hearing such a huge amount, Zora immediately became interested. She then asked what obstacles they would face on the mission. Martin explained that aside from the dinosaurs, the mission itself was a covert operation that could be considered illegal. They would have to enter a restricted zone controlled by the UN. That meant, if they were caught, they would all end up in prison. But because the reward was so high, Zora didn't care about the risk. Zora finally agreed to take the job. Martin then took her to a dinosaur museum that was about to close, where they were scheduled to meet a dinosaur expert scientist named Henry. Martin had been working with Henry for the past 6 months to develop a powerful medicine to cure heart disease using dinosaur specimens. Henry explained that they needed blood samples from 3 of the largest dinosaurs currently roaming the wild. The bigger the dinosaur, the stronger its heart and the longer its lifespan. They planned to collect samples from 3 living dinosaurs: the Mosasaurus, the Titanosaurus, and the Quetzalcoatlus. Martin explained that these 3 dinosaurs were now on an abandoned island, once owned by the bankrupt InGen Corporation. Martin urged Zora and Henry to depart that very day, because he didn't want to fall behind competing companies. At first, Henry refused to join, thinking his role was only as an advisor. But Martin asked, "Don't you want to see dinosaurs roaming free in the wild with your own eyes?" After a moment of thought, Henry finally agreed to come along. Long story short, the 3 of them flew to Suriname to meet Zora's associate, a ship captain named Duncan. Martin asked if Duncan had already prepared the vessel, but Duncan apologized, saying he had decided to back out of the mission. Not only was it illegal, but it was also far too dangerous. Martin was furious since he had traveled so far only to have Duncan cancel at the last minute. Zora then told Martin to try renegotiating the payment. Hoping Duncan might change his mind, even though he knew he was being extorted, Martin had no other choice and agreed to double the payout for Zora and her team, raising it to $20 million. Hearing this, Duncan immediately agreed. Soon after Zora's other associate, Bobby joined the group. Bobby's role was to ensure their safety. With the team complete, they set out that very day. They were assisted by 2 crew members named Nina and Leclerc. On the ship, Martin explained that back in the day, InGen had implanted a tracker inside the Mosasaurus, which would make it easy for them to track its movements. Martin revealed that the Mosasaurus was usually found near Ile Saint-Hubert Island, which InGen had once used for dinosaur research. However, the island was now a restricted zone. The good news was that all the dinosaurs they were targeting were located on that very island, so they wouldn't need to travel anywhere else. Henry then noticed Bobby preparing weapons. Henry asked, "Aren't we here just to collect blood samples, not to slaughter dinosaurs?" Bobby reassured him, saying, "Don't worry, we'll do everything we can not to harm them, unless our lives are in danger." Henry then demonstrated special syringe bullets designed to extract dinosaur blood. These bullets had to be fired from a maximum distance of 10 meters. Once the blood sample was collected, the bullet would automatically detach and fly out of the dinosaur's body.
Let me show you something.
Elsewhere, a family consisting of Ruben, his two daughters Isabella and Teresa, along with Teresa's boyfriend Xavier, were sailing across the Atlantic Ocean for their summer vacation. Ruben asked Xavier to take a turn steering the boat, but Xavier, being lazy, refused, saying he was still sleepy. He went back inside the boat to continue sleeping. Ruben couldn't understand why his daughter Teresa would date such a lazy young man. Just then, Teresa spotted something in the distance. It was a massive dinosaur moving toward them. Suddenly, something struck their boat, flipping it over. Ruben told his daughters to climb onto the overturned boat. Meanwhile, he went to try and save Xavier, who was still trapped inside. Ruben told Xavier to grab the radio from the bag, while Ruben forced the hatch open to free him. With great effort, Ruben and Xavier finally managed to escape safely. The next morning, Duncan picked up a distress call on the radio and quickly reported it to the others. Duncan explained that the people calling for help weren't far from their location. However, if they chose to rescue them, they would have to turn back, moving away from their target. But as Captain Duncan made the final decision, they would rescue the people first and only then continue with the mission. Long story short, Duncan managed to save Ruben and his family. On board the ship, Ruben explained that he and his family had been attacked by a gigantic dinosaur. To his confusion, instead of being afraid, Zora and the others seemed thrilled. Ruben finally realized that the very people who had saved him were actually hunting that monstrous dinosaur. From the monitor, Zora saw that their target, the Mosasaurus, was moving closer. Moments later, something shook the ship violently. Everyone braced themselves. Martin turned to Ruben and his family, apologizing that they wouldn't be able to get them out of there just yet. Martin assured Ruben that after completing their first mission, they would stop by a nearby island. Ruben didn't need to worry, because on that island there was a secure laboratory complex. Once all missions were complete, they would help Ruben and his family return home. Outside, everyone grew excited as the Mosasaurus surfaced. Henry helped Zora secure the ropes, while Duncan maneuvered the ship closer to the dinosaur. As they closed in, the dinosaur suddenly leapt, causing Zora's shot to miss. Just as she was about to fire again, the Mosasaurus rammed the ship, nearly knocking her overboard. Henry quickly pulled her back up. Zora then fired another shot, and this time succeeded. After the blood sample was collected, the syringe bullet automatically detached, and Henry caught it mid-air. The team cheered as they successfully secured their first sample. But Henry quietly told Zora that if Martin managed to collect all the samples, he suspected Martin would sell the cure at an extremely high price, one that only the wealthy could afford. However, if the formula were distributed for free, people all over the world could benefit from it. Zora quickly told Henry to keep quiet, since she didn't want to lose her payout if the formula ended up being given away. Just then, Teresa spotted a group of dinosaurs approaching. It was a pack of Spinosaurus. Henry was shocked to see that the Spinosaurus pack was actually helping the Mosasaurus hunt for prey. Bobby then stepped forward and opened fire on the Spinosaurus pack, but one of them ambushed him from behind, and he was killed. The Mosasaurus returned and attacked them again. Isabella nearly fell overboard, but luckily Ruben managed to save her, though the effort left him with a sprained leg. With no other option, Duncan hit full throttle, steering the ship at high speed through the rocks near the island. Zora and Henry prepared life vests just in case. Ruben then told Teresa to get inside the ship and use the radio to call for help. But just as Teresa was about to use it, Martin appeared. He forbade her from making the distress call. Martin then tried to snatch the radio from Teresa's hands, causing her to stumble and nearly fall. Teresa pleaded with Martin to help her. But Martin remained silent, and in the end, Teresa fell into the ocean. Seeing this, Xavier immediately grabbed a life vest and jumped in to save her. Ruben then urged Isabella to jump as well, since the ship was about to sink. The Mosasaurus rammed the vessel again, smashing it into the rocks and destroying the engine. Duncan ordered Zora and the others to abandon ship, and eventually the boat crashed into the rocks and washed up on shore. On another part of the island, Ruben and his family had also survived. He encouraged them to search for the laboratory rumored to be on the island, hoping it might have a radio to call for help. Meanwhile, on the beach, Henry urged the others to keep moving, since the Spinosaurus was still chasing them. Duncan and Leclerc made it to shore, but suddenly, Nina was attacked from behind by a Spinosaurus. Martin warned everyone to stay alert, explaining that this island had once been used by InGen for experiments where they created mutant dinosaurs. Zora grew furious, realizing Martin hadn't told them this from the start. Zora then rallied the group to hurry and finish the mission. She also revealed that she had a backup plan. Tomorrow night, a rescue helicopter would arrive at the landing pad inside the laboratory complex. However, the helicopter would only stop for 2 minutes. If they were late, they would be trapped on the island forever. Zora hoped that Ruben and his family would make it to the laboratory in time, so they could leave together. While crossing the swamp, Zora asked Martin, why was Teresa thrown off the boat earlier? Martin lied, saying Teresa had accidentally slipped. Growing suspicious, Zora warned, if it turns out you were the reason Teresa fell, I won't hesitate to leave you stranded on this island. While getting some water, Martin spotted a wrecked helicopter with all of its passengers dead. He realized then that a helicopter rescue would never work. Meanwhile, Ruben came across several geothermal pipes, proof that there was indeed a laboratory complex somewhere on the island. Isabella grew frightened when she saw small dinosaurs approaching, but Ruben reassured her not to worry, explaining that those little dinosaurs were herbivores. That night, while they rested, Ruben thanked Xavier for saving his daughter earlier that day. Ruben also apologized for once thinking Xavier was a lazy kid. He now understood that Xavier was brave enough to risk his life for his daughter. Xavier then excused himself to go relieve himself. While Xavier was relieving himself, a velociraptor appeared from behind, ready to attack. But suddenly, a mutant dinosaur called Mutodon emerged and devoured the velociraptor instead. Later that night, just as Ruben and his family were about to sleep, the small dinosaur from earlier approached them. Isabella offered it some of her candy, and it turned out the little dinosaur loved it so much that it curled up beside Isabella and slept next to her. The next morning, Zora and the others were stunned when they encountered 2 enormous titanosaurs towering in front of them. Curious, Henry tried to touch the leg of the massive creature. Quickly, Zora fired a syringe dart that extracted blood. Once the sample was collected, the dart detached, and Duncan immediately caught it. With the Titanosaurus blood sample secured, they hurried up a hill toward the nest of a Quetzalcoatlus. Meanwhile, Isabella asked her father if she could keep the small dinosaur that had been following her. She decided to name the little dinosaur Dolores. Soon after, they spotted a boat on the opposite side of the river. Based on the geothermal pipes they had seen earlier, Ruben was certain the laboratory they were searching for was near the river. Teresa immediately crossed the river to retrieve the boat. However, she noticed a T-Rex sleeping nearby, and to make matters worse, the boat was already damaged. Luckily, she found another inflatable raft still packed inside a box. Carefully, Teresa dragged it toward the river. Just as she was about to inflate the raft, the T-Rex woke up. While the T-Rex stopped to drink, Teresa signaled the others to climb aboard. They quickly paddled away, but the T-Rex chased after them, eventually capsizing the raft and sending everyone tumbling into the river. Swept away by the strong current, they struggled to escape as the T-Rex kept pursuing them. Fortunately, a narrow gap between rocks blocked the predator, allowing Reuben and his family to slip away safely. On top of the cliff, Zora, Henry, and Leclerc made their way down toward the Quetzalcoatlus nest, while Duncan and Martin stayed behind to keep watch. Their plan was to collect samples from the creature's eggs, since trying to draw blood from a flying Quetzalcoatlus would be nearly impossible. Up above, Duncan discovered a hidden path leading downward, covered by thick bushes. Meanwhile, Zora and Henry entered the Quetzalcoatlus nest, which was built inside an ancient temple. Henry quickly collected fluid samples from the eggs. Curious, Zora asked, "If we don't hand these samples over to Martin, then who are we supposed to give them to?" Henry explained that he knew of a health charity that could use the research to develop heart disease medicine that could be accessible to everyone around the world, not just the wealthy. Outside, Leclerc spotted a Quetzalcoatlus returning to its nest. Zora and Henry immediately panicked, abandoning the samples. To distract the creature, Leclerc threw his hammer, drawing its attention and forcing it to chase after him. Terrified, Leclerc screamed for Duncan to pull him up. Unfortunately, when Duncan tugged on the rope, Henry, who was also tied in, was yanked off balance and nearly fell. Luckily, Zora managed to grab him just in time. As Duncan hauled Leclerc up, the massive Quetzalcoatlus caught him in its jaws and devoured him. Horrified, Duncan and Martin rushed into the hidden passageway they had found earlier. Meanwhile, Henry managed to grab the sample again, but it slipped from his hands and the rope holding him snapped. Henry plummeted downward, but was fortunate enough to land in water. Zora and the others climbed down to reach him, and together they finally secured the last sample. After traveling down the river for some time, Reuben and his family finally arrived at the laboratory. Reuben urged his family to hurry inside so they could look for a radio to make contact.
We're almost there.
Not long after, Zora and the others also reached the laboratory. There, Zora spotted footprints on the ground. She was certain they belonged to Reuben and his family. She shouted their names, and at last, they were reunited.
You okay? God, you're alive.
Where is he?
Upon seeing Martin, Teresa grew furious and told the others that Martin had let her fall back when they were on the boat. Enraged, Zora demanded that Martin explain whether what Teresa said was true. Instead of answering, Martin pulled out a gun and ordered everyone to stay calm. He then snatched the case containing the samples from Zora's hands and strapped it to his own wrist. Martin declared that they would settle this argument only after the helicopter arrived to pick them up.
It must be on a timer.
As night fell, the laboratory lights automatically switched on. Suddenly, several mutadons appeared from above, setting their sights on the group. Chaos erupted as everyone scattered to escape. Reuben and his family ran into a store, while Duncan and Henry escaped into the laboratory. Meanwhile, Zora and Martin hid underneath a car. One of the mutadons grabbed the case, yanking it out of Martin's hands. Another mutadon broke through the store's roof. Reuben quickly led his family into the water ducts to escape. Inside the lab, Duncan discovered a map showing the water ducts leading straight to the dock. On the CCTV monitors, he also spotted a boat hanging at the dock. They could use it to get off the island. Just then, Duncan heard the sound of an approaching helicopter. He told Henry to signal it while he went to warn the others. Outside, Martin took the case and tried to escape by driving towards the dock. At the same time, Zora saw one of the mutadons slither into the water ducts, heading after Reuben and his family. Without hesitation, Zora jumped into the ducts to help them. Meanwhile, Henry fired a flare to signal the helicopter, but he didn't realize that it was actually the D-Rex approaching. The beast clamped its jaws onto the helicopter and hurled it into the ground, destroying it completely. Duncan then spotted Reuben and his family inside the water ducts. He urged Henry to follow him down, and once inside, Duncan told the others that the ducts led directly to the dock, where a working boat was waiting. That boat could be their way off the island. Just then, Zora appeared in front of them and opened fire on the mutadon that was about to strike from behind. They all rushed toward the dock, but when they tried to exit the laboratory, they discovered the door was locked. while the mutadons kept chasing them from behind. Isabella then slipped away on her own towards the control panel to unlock the door. But suddenly, a massive D-Rex appeared, terrifying her. Shaking with fear, Isabella finally pulled the lever, opening the exit. The door slid open, but the D-Rex blocked their way. Just then, Martin arrived in a car, and the D-Rex was immediately distracted by the headlights, crushing the vehicle with its massive jaws. Seizing the chance, Duncan urged the others to move quickly, as the mutadons were closing in. Zora slammed the door shut again, trapping the mutadons inside the laboratory. The D-Rex then ripped into Martin, devouring him, while the case of samples flew out of his hands. Zora quickly dashed forward and grabbed it. They rushed to unchain the boat, but the engine wouldn't start. The D-Rex closed in on them, ready to strike. Thinking fast, Duncan lit a flare to lure the monster away. Zora begged him to stop, but Duncan told the others to escape while he distracted the beast. He ran into the jungle, drawing the D-Rex with him. With great effort, Zora finally managed to lower the boat, and everyone climbed aboard. The D-Rex came charging back at them, but just in time, Ruben managed to start the engine, and they sped away before the creature could attack. They escaped safely. Zora called out for Duncan, but there was no response. Moments later, they saw the glow of a flare in the jungle. Duncan was still alive. Without hesitation, they steered the boat toward him and pulled him aboard. On the way home, Henry asked Zora what she planned to do with the case of samples. Zora answered that she would hand it over to a health charity so they could create a heart disease cure accessible to people all around the world, not just the rich. And that concludes the story of Jurassic World Rebirth. We hope you enjoyed it. Share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media. See you in our next video. Bye.